Welcome to the JJ Redick Podcast, a place where I interview some of the biggest names in sports and culture, as well as give you an inside look at life in the NBA. Today on the show, soccer superstar Thierry Henry.
So I used to always go back home thinking about what I missed. And when I didn't score or didn't assist or didn't play well, it was my fault that we lost. And if everyone had that mentality, then it's okay. I didn't want to know if they had it, because sometimes, as you know, we all in our bubbles, sometimes, although we're a team. But that was my thing. I was always like, it's my fault. If I miss a goal 1v1 with the keeper, in my mind, the goalkeeper never made a great save. I missed the goal. So I used to go like, no, if I execute my movement that I do usually well, he's not touching that ball, so it's my fault.
I also talked with a soccer legend about his love of the NBA, why soccer players are more athletic than NBA players, and what we're getting wrong in youth development in basketball in America. Stay with us. All right, I have a great guest for you guys this week. It's soccer superstar Thierry Henry. Thierry is probably most famous for his time with Arsenal in the English Premier League. He is the all-time leading scorer for Arsenal, and I believe he is in the top 5 in career goals in the English Premier League. He's also very well known for his time on the French national team. He's currently retired. He's an analyst for the English Premier League, and he also is an assistant coach for the Belgian national soccer team. I did not play soccer growing up. My dad introduced me to the sport. I have no idea why. When I was about 5 years old, I kicked the ball around with him a few times and said, I'd love to play on a team. It didn't go very well. I was the worst player on my team, and I quit after that first year and moved on to baseball and basketball. However, when I went to Duke, I ended up being buddies with the soccer guys. We had a lot in common, and I would go to all the games, and through them, I got introduced to the English Premier League. And for whatever reason, Arsenal was the team that I liked, and Thierry Henry was my favorite player. And partially, too, I mentioned this with my conversation with Thierry, but I think the introduction of FIFA for Xbox and PlayStation is a large factor in the rise of popularity with soccer in America. It's just a great game, and I always loved playing with the French national team whenever the World Cup version of the game would come out. As we were getting ready to pick guests for this week, knowing that I'd be in London, Thierry was at the top of my list. He happens to live over in West London and was going to be around this week. I reached out to him, and he agreed to do the show, and I'm so impressed by him. I'd never met him before. He is an absolute legend. And his insight, mind, body, youth development, why certain players are great, all of it is just absolutely fascinating to me. Without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Thierry Henry. Thierry, thanks for doing this. I'm going to ask you about your NBA fandom, because you've been an NBA fan for most of your life.
Yeah,
how were you introduced to the game as a young kid in France?
Well, first of all, thank you. And it's an honor for me to be here too. Trust me, as I love the game. Listen, back in the days, you don't have a lot of games on TV, as you can see now in Europe. You can see almost every game if you want, with the NBA League Pass and whatnot. But at the time, you didn't have a lot of games. They were only showing the finals. And so at the time, the finals were the Celtics playing the Lakers. And I guess it was an amazing time for me to grow up with the Celtics playing the Lakers, Bird versus Magic Johnson. And so you find yourself in a situation where you're going to love the game. I mean, if you don't like the game watching Bird and Johnson, then you have a problem. And so that great rivalry that they had back in the days, they had it a bit after for 2 finals. And so that's the introduction of the game. And I think it's a great introduction if you have to watch those 2 play and those 2 franchises battle every single time to get a title. It's just amazing. Then, as you know, the bad boys arrived and Michael Jordan arrived. And then he gave Houston a little chance to win too, and on, Kobe and Shaq and so on and so on. And now my friend is in the game, Tony Parker, so I have to follow the Spurs, San Antonio Spurs, and that's where it all started.
When you were watching the NBA growing up, was there a particular team that you followed, or like a lot of people, I think, who are huge NBA fans, a lot of it is following certain players rather than certain teams. I think the loyalty to teams is a little bit different in the US with NBA fans. I think a lot of it is player driven. So was there 1 or 2 guys that you really admired as players?
A lot, in all fairness. I'm not going to name them all because I can go with the likes of Isaiah Thomas, Karl Malone, and Stockton, and I'm going to name them all if I carry on. But Michael Jordan made me like the Bulls. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one. But it's interesting what you say, because in Europe, we wear the jerseys for style sometimes. I'm sure you will never get to the Celtic fan wearing a Lakers jersey. Well, I don't think that will happen, and vice versa, or whatever. They don't like each other. They hate each other, actually. But for me, even if I support San Antonio, if I like a guy in the team, I can wear his jersey because I like the guy. So as you said, here in Europe, it's more because you like a guy more than the team. And Michael Jordan made me like the Bulls. Yeah, that's for sure.
But you were just telling me earlier, not only liking a certain player, you're allowed to sort of wear the jersey. You called it a kit, but
kit,
but even just the color scheme.
Yeah,
you guys growing up as the hip hop culture came across and started to influence young kids in Europe, you guys would sort of take the colors that different hip hop artists were wearing.
Well, it happened in France earlier than any other European country. I would say Germany wasn't far with France following the hip hop culture. And so obviously, as you can see, the guys back in the days in the hip hop culture, even now, it didn't change, wearing football jerseys, basketball jerseys, not so much hockey, but basketball jerseys. And sometimes you can see a bit of baseball, but most of the time it was football or basketball. And so because you followed, for example, I used to listen to NWA. And so everybody in France wanted the Raiders jacket, a starter jacket, by the way, not any jacket, a starter jacket. Yeah, and you just follow the color. You follow the because at one point that hip hop culture was so big for us that obviously you want to wear what those guys were wearing and
right.
and whatever. And I was following basketball, and so wearing a jersey in the street was kind of cool, especially if you had a Jordan one. You couldn't find them like you can find them now. But yes, like I said, we're not that. I mean, I'm not going to talk for everybody, by the way, but I jump to Bulls, to the Spurs because Tony is playing there. If I see the jersey of Shaquille O'Neal, whether if it's a Magic one, I'll get it, or because I just like the game.
I'm not offended. I don't think anyone is that you sort of just dissed hockey, by the way, because Tommy, you guys don't have a hockey podcast, right? It's like the only sport that the Ringer doesn't have a podcast
it's
a very niche
large
thing. It's a very niche thing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So soccer in America, football, of course, here has risen in popularity. And I'm thinking as you're talking about this, like, when I was growing up, to be able to watch like a Premier League game, you had to be a serious junkie. I mean, you had to go at 6 a.m, find some random bar to be able to watch it. And now, similar to League Pass with the NBA, the sport is available everywhere, and it's certainly risen in popularity. One of the things that I always bring up whenever I talk about sort of the team aspect of the NBA and basketball specifically is the similarities, I think, between soccer and basketball. And really the two sports, I think, overlap in a lot of ways. I always say that I think basketball is the greatest combination for a sport of both athleticism and skill. And if there is a second, it would be soccer. It would be football.
You put it second. I put it first. Put it first. I'll tell you why I put it first.
This is what I want to ask you.
I'll tell you why I put it first, because we dribble with our feet.
Yeah.
And to lose your balance while you're dribbling with your feet at a higher speed, when people are pushing you, you can easily lose your balance. To cross you over, I can't do it, by the way. I can see it. But to cross you over with the ball in your hand, it's easier to cross you over with the ball in your feet.
For you?
Well, I think it is easier. If you take me, I don't think I will go as fast as you, but I will have a certain speed. I can dribble the ball back and forth to the court. On the court, back and forth.
With your hand.
If I ask you to go full speed with your feet, you will go like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The balance that you need to have to combine really bottom and top at the same time. By the way, because it's allowed in football, soccer as you call it, to be pulled and grabbed. And so while I'm running, if you pull me, I'm doing this, but I still need to.
You need to be able to control the ball.
So, but at that particular moment, what helps you to keep your balance, it's your 2 feet. But if the ball is at one of your, close to one of your foot, you only have 1 foot to stand on, full speed.
So the other day, Daniel Medina, he's our head of sports medicine with the 76ers. Do you know Daniel?
Danny, that was my doctor at Barcelona.
Okay, yeah, so you know Daniel. So I didn't know that he was there when you were there.
Yes, Danny.
Yeah, so Daniel...
He played basketball, by the way.
He did.
He never told you.
I don't know.
Well,
I know they play pickup. The staff plays pickup.
He can play.
Okay.
By the way, not at your level, you guys, but that's his sport since he was young.
All right. He doesn't talk about basketball as much. We always talk about.
Tell him.
I
He
talk
can
about
play.
soccer, football with him.
Anyway.
So one of the things he said to me, he actually said this to me like 2 days ago because we were having this discussion, and I was asking him about his experience with Barcelona, and he had something really interesting to say, and it kind of echoes what you were saying in that, biologically humans, to survive, we've learned how to sort of use our hands to grab things, to push things, to hold things, and it's second nature to then go play a sport that requires us to use our hands. And you're almost at an inherent disadvantage by playing a sport. There's a biological disconnect between your brain and your feet. It doesn't work in the same way that your body's trained to use your hands.
That's what I was trying to explain to you, and that's why I would put it first. It's like if you bring in also, I had a discussion with a friend of mine also plays in the NFL, and I said to him, when a quarterback throws that ball 70 yards or whatever it is in the hand of the guy, and great catch, and don't get me wrong, it is amazing. But when a football player, soccer player as you call it, ping the ball from 70 yards, it's the same thing. You do that with your foot. And by the way, when you catch it, you're catching it with your foot while you're running.
Right.
It's way more difficult than if you catch it with your hand. Your 2 feet are still almost on the ground, apart if you jump. But if you go with your leg, you're standing on one, sometimes on none, and you need to go back and reception yourself and make sure you don't lose the control of the ball with your feet. Because after I'm not running with it.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean?
So is there a like in terms of athleticism, you brought up the word balance, besides maybe balance, but in terms of athleticism, is there a defining characteristic, not skill, but athleticism, a defining characteristic of great soccer players, that they're able to do something athletically that other people can't do?
Other people, I don't know. But in certain sports, if we talk about all sports, is the stamina.
Okay.
Stamina going up and down for one time 45 and another time 45. And average guys do 11K in a game. Midfielders will be almost at the same speed. Striker will be almost doing that in sprints because you accelerate, decelerate, accelerate, decelerate for the whole game. And you don't touch the ball often sometimes. So the game continues. That's why it becomes very difficult. And rugby is another level, even because then you...
Of stamina, because there's the physical
There's no stop. There's no like defensive squad coming on and offensive squad coming on. You're there. And when you go down, you need to get up. No one is coming on for you. In rugby, I'm talking about. That stamina, because it is. I'm always going to be biased because it's my sport, but you need to have that. And I'm close to Tony, and sometimes it brings me to the training facilities. And I know during the season you cannot train during the season because the amount of game that you guys have is crazy. For example, you can never do a back-to-back game in football. It's impossible. It's humanly not possible.
Yes,
I can do it, but my second game will be shocking. And so you can't perform. So every 3 days, then you can, but back to back, it's impossible. That tells you already the demand of the game. I'm not saying it's easy to play basketball. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the stamina is key. I'll go back to the San Antonio story, and I saw one day in preseason, one training session, and I looked at him and I said, "That's all you're doing, guys?
That's all you're doing."
It's preseason. Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, it's just I was like, wow." I get also that the court is way smaller and stuff like that. But I would say that the stamina. And then if you go into skills, for me, the brain is always a difference between the guy that's going to make it or not. I don't care whatever skill you have. If your brain is not in place and if you're not to be able to, if you can't see what you need to see and obviously have the skill to execute it, that we all know that. But the difference for me between the okay player and a great player is that the okay player can make those passes in training. Because there is no pressure, no clock, no pressure, no fans screaming. Game, 2 minutes before the end, panics.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of skill.
Yeah.
It's a matter of seeing. Anyone can bounce, not at your level. When I say not me, I'm saying at your level. Anyone can see the run and bounce the ball. But a great player, 10 seconds on the clock or 20 seconds on the clock, will see that moment in those moments and will still make that pass or make the right call. Yeah. That's a difference. Obviously, if you compare the LeBron James and all those guys, they can do.
I totally agree with what you're saying in terms of the brain being the great separator. I think athletically, there's outliers on either side. Probably we all fit within a certain margin, and then it's the mental toughness or the vision, whatever it may be. It's the brain that kind of separates it. I want to go back to your stamina thing, just for comparison purposes. I'm not great with the conversion, but 11 kilos is...
11 kilometers will be 8
8 miles.
7 something. Yeah,
Okay, 7 or 8
to-
miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, seven.
Okay, so we have the tracking in all the arenas now that shows how much each player runs. I think the top runner in the NBA, I think, is CJ McCollum, and he averages 2.78 miles per game. I think I'm somewhere like top 15. I'm around 2.5 miles average per game. So I understand what you're saying. Like you can't play a back-to-back
Yeah, it's
in
impossible.
soccer. I mean, the load is completely different.
It's
However, this is what I want. You played striker.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge soccer guy, but you were able to sort of pace yourself a little bit. It would be short bursts, right?
Yeah.
There was an article that was sent to me about Lionel Messi when he had 3 goals against Real Madrid, where he walked, I think, 83% of the game. And so there's a little bit of pacing yourself at certain positions, right?
You have to, because if not, you die. No, because okay, I'll give you an example. You know when you sprint, nothing beats a sprint in terms of what it demands to your body. Right. When you sprint, you're going to recover way more than if you go at a certain pace. And so Lionel Messi, when he gets the ball, most of the time he goes. When he goes. So obviously, if he carries on running when he's not on the ball, he needs to be clever, kind of recover, don't run everywhere, and also you need to know when you need to kill. Those are the things that you're not going to run everywhere like a lunatic for no reason. But those runs needs to be efficient. I had a game where I had 99 sprints in the game. So 99 sprints, I think I had 40 in between 0 to 5. Explosion, not proper sprint. 0 to 5, I think I had 20, 0 to 10. I think I had, and the rest, 0 to 30, 0 to 40. If you take Usain Bolt at the end of 100, and I know it's 100, he cannot talk after doing the interview. And that's him running and relaxing after the lap of honor. And when he comes to talk to you, he's like, and so in football, I'm going to be biased, obviously, but if you play as a winger, for example, I played as a winger. When you play as a winger, okay, I give you a moment of the game. So the field is 100, 100, it depends on the field, sometimes on the side. So your team has the ball. You need to make a run, a sprint. So you make a sprint, they lose it. The right back goes the other way. You have to go with him. Go. And you still don't touch the ball, by the way, they're playing. Yeah. You get the ball back. You need to go back again because that's the game. You need to make, and then you do that, right? Maybe sometime it can be for 1.5 minutes. It doesn't look long, but you're going up and down, okay? And at that moment, they give you the ball. Now dribble past the guy. Yeah. And then what you hear in the sun and what people will do, like, oh my God, he cannot cross the ball well. But because you're focusing on the ball, you're not seeing the runs of those guys. So when that guy gets the ball and he finally dribbles past the guy and the guy is pushing him while he's crossing the ball and the ball goes behind, you hear the whole sudden going like, oh, he can't cross the ball. Same with you. They don't appreciate you trying to find a spot to shoot your 3. Sure. If you miss it, they don't see that you went behind a screen and whatever, you missed it. They don't care about you going behind the screen and right now that you can push on your leg, it's the end of the game. You had a back-to-back yesterday, you were on the plane. They don't care about that. That's why sometimes at one point, Leo Messi is clever. Yeah. He kills you when he has to kill you. It's a good way to put it. Do you understand what I mean? I think, too, as you gain experience, you figure out the rhythm and you figure out there's a rhythm, I think, to soccer. There's a rhythm to the NBA, basketball, where once you figure it out, you pick and choose your spots to exert that energy. Listen, I'm sure when you arrive in the league, you wanted to destroy everything and running everywhere. And sometimes you look at the time, you're like, 5 minutes only? I'm dead. Yeah. Okay. And then after, at one point, I don't know when for you, but at one point, it seems like the game pauses. Slows down. Yeah, you have a pause. Everything is in slow motion. Because you see everything. You know, you've been in the league for a very long time. You know that guy also. You know the team. You know the system. And you know all of this. But the difference is when you reach the level of you see everyone in slow motion. Yeah. It's the brain-body connection. Yeah, it is. It is. And for me, it's the brain. I always say, when I arrived in the US and I played in the MLS, I didn't know the league. Because the games were not on TV, not because I didn't want to know the league, it's just because I didn't know it. So I arrived there, obviously we were playing teams and you ask around, oh, who is good in that team? And they're like, whatever the player, the name of the player was, oh, he's athletic. And I used to look at the guy and say, what do you mean he's athletic? Yeah, he's so big, strong, he runs fast, he jumps high. Can he play football? Oh, yeah, that too. Well, don't you put that first? Athletic, is strong. No. It's about you and what you do with that. But ultimately, I never seen your muscle sending a message to your brain. Yeah. And it's always here let's go in the gym, to make you bigger. Let's go and put some cones on the ground to make you faster. Let's go and work on your shoot. I never heard a coach saying, I'm going to make you brighter. I'm going to make you smarter.
So then I have a question for you, because one of my questions was which NBA players would be elite soccer players, but it sounds like your answer to that would be
for me,
not who I would think it would be.
For me, no, because when I look at LeBron James,
I
see his cleverness. I don't see his athleticism. For me.
That's great. To me, he's like one of the smartest players ever.
But every time I hear is, oh my God, look at his shoulders, look at this. I've seen a lot of players in the NBA having the same shoulders. That doesn't mean that they were the best. And for me, what makes a difference with me when I see him is he's clever. He does what the game always asks him to do. If he has to post, he posts. If he has to pass, he passes. If he has to, sometimes he almost does it a bit too much. When you look at him, you're like, hey, you can go, but it seems like it's too difficult for him to not do what the game is asking him to do. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think some of it with him too is he's calculating. He doesn't just choose all of a sudden to, I'm going to pass this first quarter. There's a reason he's doing it. He feels everything.
That's what I'm saying. And the brain is very powerful, and sometimes to battle your own brain is almost impossible. And so for me, yes, it is LeBron James and whoever, Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, but because they're clever.
So for a basketball player, and for anybody who's a basketball fan, like we could envision a guy like working himself into top form. You know, he goes to the gym. You said you go to the gym, you do some cone drills, you work on your ball handling. You know, you shoot 300 shots, you work on your floaters, you go to the weight room, you do your thing, you work with your trainer, you try to get more explosive, blah, 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 blah. What does that look like for a soccer player?
I would have to say I got fortunate because I had good coaches early doors. And so I'm going to tell you something now that I'm not going to take the credit for it because I had a good education. So I can only say thanks to the coaches that I had back in the days. But for me, if we talk about to some youngsters right now, I think it's always good if you challenge your coach, but challenge your coach to develop your brain and see before. If you see before, it doesn't matter who you're playing against, he's dead. It doesn't matter if he's stronger, faster, or whatever. I believe that anyone can play in any league, in any way, if you're small, not small. I always think that people block themselves alone with their own brain. So because there is no limit if you open it. And so I had a coach, I'll give you an example. I had a coach, Brazilian coach. When I was young, I was fast. I always had that. That's the only thing I had, by the way. I was fast. Forget about the rest. We say here in England, I mean, I'm not English, but rubbish. Really bad. The rest, I was fast. So I knew that I can give you a 10-meter start, done. I'll see you on the other side. I'll beat you. No problem. But what it does when you do that is you forget how to move properly. You don't bend your run the same way. Because suddenly you're going to play in 10 years against a guy that's as fast as you. And now what do you do now? You're dead. Can't move. Can't do anything. And that's why I always say that coaches sometimes take advantage of the talent of one guy and don't want to coach the guy or open his brain. So my coach always used to say, we had a coach that today, guys, you cannot tackle. I don't want to see any tackle, any physical thing. So what he wanted to do is he don't want us to push someone out of the way. Suddenly you cannot use your physical impact or your speed. Now you need to intercept the ball before then. You need to read the pass. You need to smell the game, read the game, be ahead of the guy, put your body in basketball, for example, go ahead of the guy, try to force him to make a foul. And you start to think differently because suddenly, if you're big and strong and you know you're going to move someone out of the way, you just move him out of the way. But now suddenly, because we couldn't use our speed and we had to think, suddenly your body position does change. Then you develop that and you keep your attributes. You're strong, you're fast, you're this and that. Same, we played the game, he said the same thing. I don't want to see any back pass. No back pass. So suddenly, instead of receiving the ball square, facing you, for example, if you attack here, I go in an angle, position my shoulders like this, so I see 3/4 of the game. So then, therefore, by doing that, I can already see if he comes to attack me or not, if I can play one touch, get the ball back after or not. But if I stay like this, because you're strong, you know you're strong, so you're going to get the ball, block the guy, turn him and go. But one day you will not block that guy. So I think it's better to see who's coming. Is he coming? No, he's not coming. I turn. He's coming. I play one touch. Or I pop it to you. You pop it to the third man and I go and get it. But if you don't see, you're dead. And those skills are not because you're strong. But if you're fast here, strong here, and obviously smart, then you're ahead of all those guys. And I give you the name of a player, Andres Iniesta. I don't know if you know him. He plays for Andres Iniesta.
Yeah.
He plays for Barcelona. If you see him walk here, you're like, sorry, we're doing an interview. You wouldn't even know. We give him a ball. He's small, not really fast, not really strong, not really But if you give him the ball, you're not touching that ball because he never allows you to grab him. He always keeps his distances. It's all about his brain. It's all about what he sees before. He sees a picture before, and if he turns, he sees another picture. And if he turns again and he sees another picture, he can adapt to what he sees there and then or before. I think for me, it's all those things that you need to ask your coach to talk to you about, because we always want to shoot better, and you have to do that. You want to get stronger, you have to do that. If you're a center, you got to get stronger, because are you going to push Shaquille O'Neal when he was in the league? Are you going to do that? But you can outsmart him. Olajuwon, I saw that. Look, the dream shake and whatever it is. But I also say to the youngsters sometimes, don't wait on your coach to tell you, which, by the way, he should be doing, right? Yeah. That's his job. But I always say, hang on a minute, why don't you go knock on the door? Why? I don't understand. How can I be smarter? I want to understand the game better. I get bullied. People say I'm too small. He's too small. What is supposed to mean too small or whatever? But I always say to the guys, to the youngsters, go and challenge your coach in a good way, by the way, for the good of the game, for the good of your education. Go and challenge your coach because it's so easy to sit and say, my coach didn't coach me. Next generation, as you know, in 4 years or 3 years or 2, is going to have a new crew. Then it doesn't really matter.
Listening to you talk about this, I keep thinking to myself about AAU basketball. Are you familiar at all with AAU basketball?
No.
It's youth basketball in America.
Okay.
You play on traveling teams. When you're in high school, so when you're 8th, 9th grade, you start playing in sort of older groups, and you spend basically the entire summer and most of the spring and a little bit of the fall traveling around the country, sometimes the world, and you're playing against other elite players, but you're not learning the nuances of the game. I like what AAU represents. I had a great experience playing AAU, but the nuances of the game, the thinking of the game is something that's missing. And hearing you say this, I'm realizing that, I think we're in grassroots basketball, we're doing a disservice to kids because we're not teaching them how to play the right way. What they're doing is exactly what you're saying we shouldn't be doing, and that's they're relying on their sort of physical ability. And at some point, they get to a time where they're playing against either college players or NBA players, and we all have the same sort of physical ability. Now, what skills have you learned? What nuances, what tricks have you learned? How much can you think the game? And that's, man, we need to do a better job of that.
And that's why I always say, when I went there, I was shocked with the answer of, like I said to you, is athletic. And I was like, what is that supposed to mean?
Well, I think it's ingrained in how we speak about athletes in America. It's not just soccer. That's how we talk. That's how we talk.
And for me, as I said to you, LeBron James is good because he's smart. And yes, the rest, we know that. But if you go to what you just said, about their education, and you also have to understand that nowadays we live in a world where the new generation and the coaches have to deal with something different also. Guys have it easier, guys have it earlier. Yeah. You don't have to show anything, you're already someone.
You can become Twitter, Instagram famous at 14.
Which is, I don't agree. For me, you have to pay your dues and whatnot, but you still can create an environment or a code within your team or within your camp that people need to respect when they come here. If I said to you and people don't know, it's more difficult in football because there's not such a thing as a system. There's not such a thing as, come, we're going to draw this and do it. In football is up until the last third, you can plan something and how to play. And in the last third is instinct. Is what you did before that will open up stuff and then it's you in your brain.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean? And so I go back to that coach. He used to tell us, today we can only score on the cross. The off position didn't know, but we knew we had to score on the cross. And so that implicates a lot. There is a cross, you need to make the box. There is a cross, you need to occupy the first post, second post, penalty spot. The other team didn't know that. It's like if I said to you, you don't have system and you, like you said, your team, we have to score on the 3. That's it, guys, let's go.
I would love that.
Yeah, that's for sure. You need, a floater. Yeah. They don't know, but it's gotta have to be a floater on that. But with no system. Yeah. And so now you guys work it out. Yeah. At a young age. Yeah. Instead of telling you, and it's, don't get me wrong, it's important in basketball to have the coach during this. But I'm saying to you, if you're 5, 6, 7, 8, and I said to you, guys, I don't care, I want to lay up. It's on you. And so, you kind of have to work it out yourself. Do you know what I mean? It's a different approach, a different education, because winning in college for you is so important. It's very important. Sure. It's March Madness and you look at in football and whatnot, you forget the true thing, developing players. The most important thing, developing players. And I'm going to mention Coach K, because I know, obviously, you had him. That's why he's special, because he won and he developed players.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's the only one. It's not true, but not a lot of guys do think like that. Not a lot of guys think, I want to make that guy better for the NBA.
I always say that Coach K, his greatest strength is his adaptability. He doesn't have a system. He says, "Who's on my team? I'm gonna make this team good based on my personnel, and I'm gonna let them figure it out that way."
So he gives
so guys learn to play instinctually instead of playing in this box where they're confined to things. I got like 2 more questions I want to ask you real quick. I want to ask you about being a goal scorer. Okay, if I mess up your stats, forgive me. Please correct me. So I believe you're top 5 Premier League all time. Is that right?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. All-time leading scorer for Arsenal? Yes. All-time leading scorer for the French national team?
Yes.
Okay. So you've scored a lot of goals. All right. So I'm relating this back to being a shooter and that sort of task, if you will, of putting the ball in the basket. And I've said this before, but I always feel like it's a little bit of a burden in the expectation and sort of because so much of basketball, it's a crapshoot. Sometimes the alchemy can be perfect. I can do my pregame shooting, my post shoot around shooting. I can get my sleep. I can eat the same thing. I can do all that stuff. And I go 3 for 12. There's a burden that's inherent, I think, to being a shooter. And I'm wondering if you ever felt that being a goal scorer, not just a goal scorer, but just an offensive creator.
Yeah, I prefer that. For me, the most important thing in the game is your goals involvement.
Yeah.
So when you talk about goals involvement, you talk about goals and you talk about assists. I'm more happy in my career with the assists that I've made than the goals. My people love to concentrate on my goals.
Yeah.
Because, I was known for that. It's like if you suddenly score a lot of threes, but every time you have like 10 or 11 assists.
Yeah.
But you're known for your threes, so people concentrate on that. And so, like I said, I always, focus more on my assist or more happy, on my assist and my goal is kind of weird, but it is where it is. And to go back to the burden, something helped me early. You lose, it's you. I don't think that was right. If you lose, it's because you didn't score, period. Even if you didn't play well, even if you're not the worst player on the field, it's your fault. And also when you win, it's you, which also I don't agree with because it's a team sport. But you learn that early and you get slapped both ways, whatever it is. But I learned how to deal with that with my dad. I tell you why, because my dad was the hardest guy to please. So once I dealt with my dad and I put a smile on his face, the rest was just, I won't say a joke, because you do arrive at the game knowing that you need to perform and you know that. But for me, the hardest thing or the burden that I had is when I was young, looking at my dad, I'm like, oh, the guy is still not smiling. What am I doing wrong? I'm looking, he's still not smiling. When I put a smile on his face, everything became easier. In bracket, because it wasn't that easy, as you know. But that's how I was. You know what? I embraced it also.
Yeah.
And that's why when I was a player, I never used to drink. I started to drink a bit when I stopped my career. Because for me, some of the guys were going out. And that was my answer after games all the time. Hey, if we lose on Tuesday, it's me, the back page, that didn't perform. So do you, I do me. No disrespect, I like you and everything. But I'm sure you like me better if I play well on Tuesday. So I'm going home because I know if we don't win on Tuesday, it's me the problem. So I was trying to avoid that. But you kind of, embrace it in a way, if I can say that as much as embracing that. But yes, it was great because you find out about yourself also. I like challenges. So, you find out about yourself. When you arrive in a dressing room, when people look at you, and you're like, you're in your mood, you listen to your music, but you know that you have to perform because it's expected.
Yeah. Not everyone embraces that, though, that responsibility that you speak of. Not everyone does, even the great players. Some of them don't embrace that and aren't willing to say, like, if we lose, it's on me. That's rare.
Listen, JJ, can I call you JJ?
Yeah.
I always used to go back home and think about what I missed.
Yeah.
Because what was done was done. How can I do it better? Can I be better? I've done it. So I used to always go back home thinking about what I missed. And when I didn't score or didn't assist or didn't play well, it was my fault that we lost. And if everyone had that mentality, then it's okay. I didn't want to know if they had it because sometimes, as you know, we all in our bubbles, sometimes, although we're a team.
Yeah.
But that was my thing. I was always like, it's my fault. If I miss a goal, 1v1 with the keeper, in my mind, the goalkeeper never made a great save. I missed the goal.
Yeah.
So I used to go like, no, if I execute my movement that I do usually well, he's not touching that ball. So it's my fault. So that always used to make me work even more the day after on my finishing. Instead of saying, you know what, it was a hell of a finish, but the goalkeeper saved it. Right. Then I go, no.
There's a way to counter it.
Yeah, because listen, my thing was always, it's always your fault.
Yeah. I'm going to warn everyone in the room right now, this might get a little weird. Okay. But I want to ask you about goals, like the feeling of goals. So when I was in college, I think it was my junior year, I was a culture anthropology minor, and one of my culture anthropology classes was about sports and culture. We covered a bunch of different topics. My professor was a big football, soccer fan, whatever. He had us read this passage in this book about soccer and just in other cultures. And basically the essence of it is that, the passing in soccer is the foreplay. The crowd, as they're chanting, is part of the foreplay. And that moment when a goal is scored is the climax. It's the orgasm, if you will.
That's a nice way to put it.
Well, for me, it's why I'm addicted to basketball, because every time I see the ball go through the net, it's a dopamine hit, but it's a little mini orgasm. I mean, it is. And I'm wondering that feeling that you get, that whether it's feeding off your teammates or the crowd, whatever it may be, because it happens once a game or twice a game or 3 times a game. It's not 84 to 82. It's not 108 to 106.
It's kind of a weird one because without the crowd coming, as you said, and you making that pass, that guy will not score.
Yeah.
We all know that. So it's a evolution of stuff that makes it amazing. Good.
Yeah.
That makes it amazing. And when you score, it's more than an explosion. It's just uncontrollable sometimes. And whatever you think at that moment will come out.
The joy, whatever.
It can be something else.
Yeah.
With me, sometimes I used to get up. People used to say I never used to celebrate my goals because in my mind, I was thinking about what I missed before. So in my mind, I was like, how can I score this one? And I missed so my mind was upset on what I missed before when I scored a more difficult goal than what I missed.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do understand what you mean. But there were moments in your career where you let out I'm thinking of the game against Tottenham. You let emotion out. You ran across the field.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I said
taunted
to you.
their crowd, essentially.
But it is what I had in my mind at that moment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let them know this is our field. We're winning, and I wanted to celebrate in front of them. Like the comeback goal when I came back to play for Arsenal and I scored that goal, and you could see that raw joy, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Look at the sky, and whenever I scored a goal, it was always, it's difficult to explain what happened.
Yeah,
it's what I had in my mind came out at that moment because you can't control it.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird, but when you see me when I used to play giving a goal, I was always joy.
When you got an assist.
Yeah, because I'm not going to go into the way you explain it and your way with your teacher.
This is my professor, not me. Just
yeah, no. But to make someone happy, there's nothing better than that.
Sure.
And that's why for me, we tend to forget that this is a collective sport.
Yeah.
We always go down with this, that, oh my God, how many points and how many this. But for me, nothing beats a pass.
Yeah.
No pass, no game. Do you understand what I mean? And the way the ball moves sometimes is as beautiful as, for me, as a guy that drives alone or a guy that dribbles alone.
Yeah.
Playing proper basketball, playing proper football, and you give, when you give someone something.
Sure.
And you can see their joy after. That beats your joy. Well, mine.
Yeah. No, to bring it full circle, we talked about at the very beginning just about the similarities between the two sports. And I think that's why people love watching the Spurs so much, is because it's such a team concept and the way the ball moves, and there is that anticipation, like, oh, they're gonna make another pass. Oh, they're gonna make another pass. Oh, they have a wide open corner 3. Patty Mills, bang. You know what I mean? There's that joy in sharing, and you're right. So much of whatever you want to call it, but we tend to forget sometimes that these are team sports. We've glamorized the individual a little bit.
I spoke to a friend of mine the other day. Right, when you watch an ad, first and foremost, always that concept of, in basketball, it will be obviously on the court 4+1. In football, 10+1 plus the guy that makes you win and blah, blah, blah. You watch an ad, any brand, it's always you finish on the shot at the buzzer. Whenever I watch a basketball and football, it's always comes out from the back and you see the goal scorer scoring the goal and celebrate. You never see the other way around, the ad going. If you start with the celebration and you go back, if you do an ad and you go back into how it happened, then your kid watching it will go like, oh yeah, that's how you score a goal. What I'm saying is usually you see the cross and the header celebration, shot at the buzzer. What I want to see is the celebration starts and you go back to how you score the goal, because the guy that makes the pass is also important. The guy that put his face on the line to serve the goal that's there when the guy scored after is also important. The guy that the vision to make that pass for the guy that crosses the ball is also important. But those guys are not in the ad usually.
Yeah.
It's always the guy, he's that guy. And I understand you need to sell what you need to sell, and it is what it is. You're obviously going to sell more if you put LeBron James than maybe someone else. But we also need to be careful because we educate kids also along the way. And how many LeBron James have we seen? You know what I mean? How many LeBron James have we seen?
I think that's what it is, though. It's the connectivity of the sport, our respective sports, that ultimately is what I love about playing basketball. It's not just the lonely pursuit of shooting. It's the connectivity that I get with my teammates and coaches. And when the game is played in a beautiful way, there's no feeling like it. There's absolutely no feeling. The joy that you said, it's perfect. I appreciate the time. You're awesome.
Thank you.
This has been great. That's it for the show this week. And if you enjoyed the show, give us a rating and review over at Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening.